Let me tell you something straight up. Confidence isn't a talent you're born with. It's a skill. It's a choice. It's a muscle. And the more you work it, the stronger it gets. I didn't wake up one day magically believing in myself. I had to fight for it. I had to claim it. So if you're someone who doubts yourself, who feels small in a big room, let me give you 5 smart rules to change the game. Not tomorrow, not next year, right now. S. Speak to yourself like you would speak to someone you love. The voice in your head, it matters. It shapes how you walk into a room, how you show up in your life. Stop tearing yourself apart over your flaws. Instead, speak power into your story. Say, I am capable. I am evolving. I may not be there yet, but I'm showing up. Be your own cheerleader before expecting anyone else to be one. The world hears how you speak to yourself, and it responds to it. M. Make fear your fuel. You want confidence. Get comfortable with discomfort, because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. I've stood on stages where my knees were shaking. I've walked into auditions with a pounding heart. But I reminded myself, fear is proof that something matters. Let it guide you. Let it push you. And then show fear that you're bigger than it ever imagined. A. Act before you feel ready. Confidence doesn't come first. Action does. Too many of us wait to feel perfect before we take a leap. Let me tell you, perfection is a myth. You'll never be fully ready. So start, speak, show up. Take messy, brave, imperfect action. Every single time you do, you build proof that you're capable. And that proof stacks up into unshakable belief. R. Remember who you are, not what you lack. You are not your insecurities. You are not the people who doubted you. You are not your failures or your fears. You are the fire you've walked through. The lessons you've learned. The strength you've built in silence. Confidence comes from remembering the warrior in you. Especially when the world tries to make you forget. Own your worth like it's non-negotiable. Because it is. Train it daily, like a ritual. Confidence isn't built in a day. It's built in the little choices. When you get up instead of giving up. When you speak up instead of staying silent. When you choose self-respect over people-pleasing. Confidence is a daily decision, a ritual, a relationship with yourself. Nurture it. Celebrate your growth. Keep promises to yourself. That's how you rise. So, let me ask you this. Are you ready to stop waiting for permission and start believing in the power you already have? Because self-confidence isn't about being loud. It's about being grounded. It's not about arrogance. It's about knowing who you are, even when the world forgets. And the most powerful thing you can ever be is unapologetically you. So go out there, walk in your truth, and let the world adjust to your light. That voice in your head, yes, that quiet whisper that echoes in the silence, can either be your biggest cheerleader or your most brutal critic. Most people don't realize that the way they talk to themselves in private shapes how they carry themselves in public. If you constantly call yourself weak, unworthy, or not enough, you begin to embody that belief. You slouch into rooms instead of stepping in with presence. You second guess your ideas before they've even had a chance to breathe. But if you shift the tone of that voice, if you start replacing harshness with encouragement, you begin to transform not just your mood, but your entire energy. The world treats you how you treat yourself. So if your inner voice doesn't uplift you, it's time to rewire it. Too often we become fluent in self-deprecation but struggle with self-praise. We say things to ourselves we would never say to a friend, and yet we expect to walk through life confident and strong. Imagine what would change if every time you looked in the mirror, you said something kind, something honest, something empowering. I'm proud of how far I've come. I may not be perfect, but I am worthy of love and respect. These aren't just fluffy affirmations. They are seeds. And when you plant them consistently, they grow into unshakable self-belief. Confidence doesn't come from external validation. It blooms from internal conversation. Your mind listens to everything you say, and over time, it starts to believe it. That's why the stories you repeat matter more than you think. Every "I'm not good enough" digs a trench in your confidence. Every "I can handle this" builds a foundation. It's not about pretending everything is perfect. It's about choosing words that lift you up instead of tearing you down. You become what you consistently say to yourself. So choose words that feel like a warm light, not a cold shadow. Because the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. Most people wait for external success to feel confident. But what they don't realize is that confidence begins in the invisible moments. Those private seconds when no one is watching. When you comfort yourself after a failure. When you encourage yourself before taking a risk. When you look in the mirror and decide you are enough, even if the world doesn't always reflect that truth. These moments matter. They build emotional muscle. And just like going to the gym, the more you practice speaking kindly to yourself, the stronger and more resilient your self-image becomes. Think of your inner voice as the background music to your life. If it's always gloomy and harsh, it dulls even the brightest achievements. But when it's positive, nurturing, and affirming, it turns even ordinary moments into scenes of power and grace. This voice is with you 24/7. It doesn't take breaks. So imagine the impact of making that voice your ally, your motivator, your steady anchor. Life is hard enough without carrying a critic inside your own head. You deserve to walk through life with a voice that reminds you of your worth, especially on the days you forget it. So speak with intention. Speak with compassion. You don't have to lie to yourself, but you do have to be fair. Talk to yourself like you would talk to a friend you believe in. Because when your inner voice reflects love, resilience, and respect, your outer world begins to shift in powerful ways. People notice the quiet confidence, the unshakable calm, the strength that doesn't need to shout. And it all starts with one choice: to speak to yourself like you matter, because you do. Fear is not your enemy, it's your signal. It shows up when something matters. It whispers to you when you're standing at the edge of your comfort zone, when you're about to speak up, try something new, or finally choose yourself. Most people see fear and turn around. They take it as a warning to stop. But the truth is, fear is just a sign that you're alive, that you're growing. It's your body recognizing you're entering unfamiliar territory. And in that exact moment, you have two choices. Let it freeze you, or let it fire you up. Because fear will always be there, but so will your decision to use it. We often confuse fear with weakness. But think about it. Why would you be afraid if you didn't care? You fear rejection because connection matters. You fear failure because your dreams mean something to you. That fear is not proof of your limitation. It's proof of your passion. The problem is, we've been taught to run from it instead of respecting it. But when you start listening to fear, not as a block but as a compass, everything changes. It points you toward the very thing you need to grow into the next version of yourself. Let fear be your signal, not your stop sign. The most powerful people in the world feel fear every single day. The difference is they walk with it. They don't wait for it to go away. They move forward anyway. That's what real courage is. Not the absence of fear, but movement in spite of it. You don't build confidence by avoiding fear. You build it by dancing with it, by standing up with shaky hands, by speaking with a trembling voice, by taking the step even when your heart is racing. Fear doesn't vanish overnight, but it does shrink the more you act in its presence. And every time you choose bravery over safety, you grow stronger. Think about the last time you felt scared and still did the thing. Maybe you walked into a room full of strangers, applied for something out of your league, admitted your truth out loud. That moment, however messy, built something permanent in you. It gave you evidence that you can survive fear. And the more evidence you collect, the more unshakable your self-belief becomes. That's how transformation happens. Not in the absence of fear, but right in the heart of it. You become someone new every time you do what you were afraid of doing. You become more you. Let fear excite you. Let it mean something powerful is on the other side. Because the most meaningful breakthroughs in life live right behind the fear you don't want to face. Whether it's the fear of failing, being judged, being seen, or even succeeding, acknowledge it, respect it, but don't obey it. Stand at the edge of it and say, "You're not my master. You're just my signal." And then walk through it anyway. Because the life you want, the version of you that walks in full confidence, is only found on the other side of that invisible wall. So don't waste your time waiting to feel fearless. That moment may never come. But bravery, that's yours right now. Take fear with you, but don't let it lead. You've got dreams to chase, a life to build, a voice to raise. And you won't get there by playing small. You'll get there by deciding that your future is more important than your fear. And once you start using fear as fuel, you'll realize what once scared you now empowers you. Confidence isn't something you wake up with, it's something you earn. And here's the truth most people avoid. You're never going to feel fully ready. You'll never have the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect version of yourself. And if you keep waiting for that moment when you finally feel confident, you'll stay stuck. Confidence doesn't magically appear one morning. It's built in motion. It's developed in the doing. You don't get confident before taking action. You get confident because you took action. Even when you were scared, even when you weren't sure, you stepped forward, and that step changed you. We all have dreams, goals, conversations we want to have, risks we want to take. But the majority of people sit on the sidelines, hoping confidence will knock on the door first. That's not how it works. Confidence is like a fire. You have to build it. You have to gather the wood, strike the match, and protect that flame until it becomes strong enough to stand on its own. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you add fuel to that fire. You prove to yourself that you can show up, that you can try, that you can handle what comes next. Confidence grows in the presence of momentum. The people you admire for their boldness, their strength, their energy, they didn't start that way. They began with shaking voices and sweaty palms. They started with unsure steps and lots of mistakes. What made them confident wasn't that they were perfect. It's that they moved anyway. They said yes before they knew how. They launched the thing before the plan was clear. And in doing that, they gained experience. And with experience came trust. And with trust came confidence. So if you're waiting to feel like enough before you begin, let this be the wake up call. You're already enough because you're willing to grow. Growth lives on the other side of movement. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, talk about it endlessly. But until you take action, nothing shifts. Action is the teacher. It shows you what works, what doesn't, what you're made of. It breaks the illusion of fear and replaces it with data, with feedback, with confidence rooted in evidence. You stop hoping you're capable and start knowing you are. And once you've felt that shift, you realize you don't need to wait for clarity or perfection. You need to move. Movement creates clarity. Movement breeds belief. If you're stuck in your head, overwhelmed by all the what ifs, ask yourself one thing. What's one small action I can take right now? Not tomorrow, not next week, now. Something uncomfortable, something honest, something that pushes you even slightly beyond where you've been. That's how confidence is born. In the doing, not the dreaming. And every time you take that one brave step, you build a version of yourself that knows how to act. Not just think. You go from being someone who waits for life to someone who creates it. So don't idolize the people who seem fearless. Understand that they got there through motion. They were once where you are, nervous, uncertain, full of doubt, but they decided to act anyway. They made mistakes. They learned. They got better. And now, that confidence you admire, it's the result of every messy step they chose to take. You can do the same. You already have everything you need to begin. Because what builds confidence isn't who you are before the action, but who you become because of it. So many people walk through life with their eyes fixed on what they lack. They compare, they doubt, they shrink themselves because all they can see are their flaws, their failures, and their unfinished pieces. But what if, just for a moment, you shifted your focus? What if you stopped obsessing over what you're not and started honoring everything you already are? You've survived days you thought would break you. You've overcome things no one even knows about. You've built strength in silence, grown in the dark, and kept going when quitting would have been easier. That matters. That counts. That is your foundation. The world will try to make you believe you're always one step behind. One degree, one relationship, one achievement away from being enough. But confidence doesn't come from meeting impossible standards. It comes from embracing the truth of who you are right now. You're not a half-finished project. You're a work of art in motion. Yes, you're still learning. Yes, you're still growing. But that doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human. And humans are complex, layered, ever evolving. Focusing on what you're missing blinds you to the beauty of what's already there. Your resilience, your kindness, your creativity, your grit. You weren't meant to be perfect. You were meant to be real. And real people have scars, stretch marks, battle wounds, and unfinished chapters. But those aren't signs of weakness. They're reminders that you've lived, that you've fought, that you've kept choosing to show up when it was easier to hide. So why let flaws define you when your fight could empower you? Stop measuring your worth by what you haven't done. Start celebrating what you've overcome. Your story isn't a list of what's missing. It's a record of strength, one that deserves to be seen in full light. There's a quiet confidence that comes when you begin to focus inward, not outward. When you stop comparing your timeline to someone else's highlight reel. When you realize that your value isn't tied to anyone else's validation. You become grounded in your truth. You start showing up fully, not because you think you're better than others, but because you finally stopped believing you're less. That shift is powerful. It changes the way you walk into rooms, how you speak your truth, how you hold space for yourself. Because when you know who you are, the noise of who you're not starts to fade. Think about everything you faced to be here right now. The hard choices, the sacrifices, the silent nights of doubt. Most people don't see that. They only see the surface. But you know the depth of your story. You know the tears behind your smile, the effort behind your calm, the growth behind your silence. And that story, that layered, beautiful, messy story, is your power, not your flaws, not your resume, your truth. The more you embrace it, the more you begin to realize that confidence isn't about having it all. It's about owning all that you are, flaws and all, with zero apology. You don't need to fix yourself to feel worthy. You don't need to become someone else to be lovable. You simply need to see yourself clearly, not through the lens of lack, but through the lens of gratitude. What if you woke up tomorrow and focused on your courage instead of your fear? Your effort instead of your exhaustion? Your progress instead of your perfection? You'd walk differently. You'd speak differently. You'd glow differently. Because the moment you stop chasing what you're not and start standing in who you are, you become unstoppable. Self-confidence isn't something you achieve once and carry forever. It's not a destination. It's a daily decision. Every morning, you're given a new chance to prove to yourself that you're worthy, strong, and capable. But that proof doesn't come from massive wins. It comes from small, intentional choices. The way you talk to yourself when you wake up, the way you dress to honor how you feel, the way you show up in conversations, in work, in silence. Confidence is built in the micro moments, the moments no one sees but you. And those moments matter more than you know. You don't need to have everything figured out to feel confident. What you need is consistency. The confidence you admire in others isn't magic. It's the result of countless days. They chose discipline over doubt. Strength. Maybe it's the way they prioritize their mental health, or how they speak up in meetings, or how they follow through on promises they make to themselves. These habits, repeated day in and day out, form the emotional backbone of true confidence. You begin to trust yourself, not because you're perfect, but because you've built a track record with your own soul. And that trust, that's where real power lies. Think of confidence like a muscle. You wouldn't expect to go to the gym once and be strong for life. You wouldn't lift a dumbbell one time and assume you're done. The same goes for self-belief. It requires daily reps. It requires commitment. Some days it looks like doing the hard thing. Some days it looks like resting because you respect your limits. Either way, it's about showing up for yourself again and again. Confidence is built when you decide you're worth the effort every single day, even when it's inconvenient. Strength even when you don't feel like it, even when no one is watching. What truly shifts your self-confidence is the relationship you have with yourself. If you constantly break promises to yourself, if you say you'll do something and then don't, you subconsciously teach yourself that you can't be trusted. But when you follow through, when you hold yourself accountable, when you take care of your body, your goals, your peace, you build integrity. You become someone who respects themselves. And that self-respect turns into confidence that doesn't shake in the presence of judgment. It stays rooted because it wasn't built to impress others. It was built in private through commitment. Some days you'll feel powerful. Other days you'll feel like you're starting over. That's okay. Confidence doesn't mean you always feel amazing. It means you continue showing up regardless of how you feel. It means you believe in your ability to navigate any season. The low days teach resilience. The high days remind you what's possible. Both are valuable. Both are part of the process. The key is not to give up on yourself when things get tough, because the confidence you build on your hardest days becomes the foundation you stand on when you rise. So, if you're wondering how to become more confident, stop looking for a one-time breakthrough. Start looking at your daily patterns. Start with how you treat yourself when no one else is around. Start with how you respond to fear, to failure, to feedback. Each day is a new opportunity to practice self-trust. And over time, those daily decisions turn into a voice inside you that says, I've got this. Not because you've never fallen, but because you've proven that you'll always rise. And that is the kind of confidence no one can take away from you. There is a quiet kind of power that lives in authenticity, a strength that doesn't demand attention but commands respect. In a world that's constantly trying to mold you, label you and box you in, choosing to be yourself is the most radical act you can commit. We are taught from an early age to blend in, to be agreeable, to not ruffle feathers. But here's the truth: you weren't born to blend in. You were born to stand in your truth, to speak with your own voice, and to walk your own path, even if it looks different from the rest. The real you. The messy, honest, evolving you is your most magnetic self. Too often, we shrink ourselves to make others comfortable. We edit our personalities to gain approval. We wear masks just to be liked. But how long can you play a role before you forget who you really are? Authenticity isn't about pleasing others. It's about living in alignment with your values, your beliefs, your soul. When you stop performing and start showing up as you, something incredible happens. You attract the right people, the right energy, the right opportunities. The kind that don't ask you to dim your light, but to shine even brighter. Confidence blooms when you stop faking and start embracing. Being real doesn't mean being perfect. It means being honest. It means having the courage to say, "This is who I am, flaws and all ball." That honesty builds connection. People are drawn to what's real, not what's polished. When you embrace your quirks, your passions, your unique perspective, you give others permission to do the same. You become a mirror that reflects courage. The world doesn't need another imitation. It needs your originality. Because there's a kind of beauty that only you can offer. And the moment you realize that, your confidence stops depending on trends, followers, or outside praise. Some of the most powerful people in the world didn't get there by trying to fit in. They got there by owning their truth. They knew they weren't for everyone, and they stopped trying to be. That's not arrogance. It's clarity. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone when you've already accepted yourself. That inner validation becomes your armor. You walk differently. You speak with purpose. And you radiate an energy that says, "I know who I am. And I'm not changing to make you comfortable." That's the kind of confidence that can't be faked, and it's the kind that lasts. It takes bravery to show up as yourself in a world that profits off your insecurity. Every commercial, every algorithm, every standard screams, "You're not enough." But authenticity whispers, "You already are." That whisper, when listened to daily, grows louder. It becomes a roar. And that roar isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the realist. It's about knowing that your worth isn't tied to external validation, but to the internal truth you carry in your chest. That's why authenticity is your superpower. It's the one thing no one can replicate, steal, or diminish. If you want unshakable self-confidence, stop chasing who you think you should be and start honoring who you already are. That version of you, the one who's been through battles, the one with dreams that still burn, the one who refuses to give up, is more than enough. You don't need louder words or a different face. You just need presence. Real presence. The kind that comes from knowing you belong, not because you're perfect, but because you're true. Confidence isn't about volume, it's about alignment. When who you are on the inside matches, who you show to the world, you become unstoppable. When you stop waiting for the world to define your worth and start embracing your truth, everything changes. Real confidence isn't about pretending to be fearless. It's about moving forward, even when you're scared. It's built in the choices you make daily, the risks you take without a guarantee, and the love you show yourself, even in your imperfect moments. Confidence grows when you speak kindly to yourself, when you act before you're ready, when you remember your strengths, practice with intention, and show up unapologetically. Your authenticity, your journey, your resilience, they are not just parts of you, they are your power. So stop shrinking. Stop doubting. You don't need to be more like anyone else. You only need to be more of you. Because who you are, when fully owned, is more than enough to rise.